Integrating Satan, crossing the abyss. The deepest illusion within human consciousness is not fear. It is not guilt. It is not shame. It is the belief that we are separate from one another, from life, from love, from God. Every other shadow grows from this single misunderstanding. The body becomes identity because we believe ourselves separate. The mind becomes identity because we believe ourselves separate. Power becomes domination because we believe ourselves separate. Love becomes attachment because we believe ourselves separate. The illusion of separation quietly gives birth to every other fragmentation explored throughout this book. Some respond by denying their shadow, believing they can reach wholeness by rejecting what remains unconscious. Others become completely identified with separation, believing themselves fundamentally broken, abandoned, or alone. Though these expressions appear opposite, they arise from the same illusion. One refuses to see the shadow, the other believes they are the shadow. Neither crosses the abyss. The abyss is crossed when separation itself is recognized as the final illusion, not intellectually, existentially. This is the restoration of the ought, not the accumulation of knowledge, the embodiment of knowing, not becoming whole, remembering that wholeness was never absent. Healing repression. When separation is repressed, the individual often attempts to become spiritual by denying everything that appears imperfect. The shadow is rejected, pain is bypassed, fear is hidden, the human experience becomes something to transcend rather than embrace. Yet what remains unseen cannot become integrated. The parts of ourselves we reject quietly continue shaping our lives from beneath awareness. Healing begins by turning toward what has been avoided, not with condemnation, with compassion. Every part of ourselves longs to be understood before it can be transformed. Practices. Notice the parts of yourself you instinctively judge or hide. Rather than asking, how do I get rid of this? Ask gently, what is this part trying to protect? Allow uncomfortable emotions to be experienced without immediately trying to escape them. Practice extending compassion toward the parts of yourself that still feel afraid, ashamed, or incomplete. Recognize that bringing awareness to the shadow is not failure, it is the beginning of integration. Every part welcomed into awareness weakens the illusion that wholeness requires perfection. Healing possession. When separation becomes possessed, the individual gradually believes they are fundamentally isolated, broken, unworthy, disconnected. Life becomes a continual search for completion. The mind whispers that fulfillment always exists somewhere beyond the present moment. Yet separation survives only through continual identification. Healing begins by remembering that awareness itself has never been divided. Thoughts arise within it, emotions arise within it, identity arises within it, yet awareness remains unchanged. The illusion of separation begins dissolving whenever we stop identifying exclusively with the experiences moving through consciousness. Practices. Spend time each day resting quietly in simple awareness. Notice thoughts without following them. Notice emotions without becoming them. Notice sensations without resistance. Ask yourself, who is aware of this experience? Practice seeing others not as obstacles or strangers, but as fellow expressions of the same consciousness experiencing life through different perspectives. Whenever comparison arises, gently return to gratitude. Whenever judgment arises, become curious. Whenever loneliness arises, remember that connection begins by becoming fully present. Every moment of presence weakens the illusion that you are separate from life. Integration. As both extremes gradually soften, something remarkable begins to occur. The need to become whole gradually disappears, not because growth has ended, but because the search itself begins to dissolve. You no longer seek God as though God were elsewhere. You no longer seek love as though love were absent. You no longer seek yourself as though you had ever truly been lost. The divisions that once seemed absolute begin appearing as movements within a greater unity. The shadow becomes teacher rather than enemy. Others become mirrors rather than threats. Life becomes relationship rather than opposition. The abyss is no longer experienced as separation. It becomes the space through which every illusion of separation quietly falls away. This is the return of thought, knowledge becoming being, understanding becoming embodiment, the remembrance that the bridge was never missing, only forgotten. Recognition. As Satan begins to integrate, subtle changes naturally appear. The need to judge gradually softens. The need to compare loses its influence. Forgiveness becomes easier because separation no longer feels absolute. Loneliness begins giving way to connection. You become less identified with every passing thought, emotion, or role. The desire to continually seek completion outside yourself gradually fades. Presence becomes more natural. Compassion becomes more effortless. The world begins feeling less like something happening to you and more like something you are consciously participating within. You begin recognizing yourself within others and others within yourself. These are signs that the art is beginning to awaken. Living expression. As the illusion of separation gradually dissolves, life begins expressing itself differently. Service no longer feels like obligation, it becomes a natural expression of remembering. Forgiveness no longer feels like sacrifice, it becomes the recognition that resentment only deepens separation. Relationships become opportunities to encounter yourself through another. Differences remain, yet they no longer threaten unity. You become increasingly able to hold paradox without conflict, to embrace both your humanity and your divinity, to welcome both your strengths and your limitations. The search for completion quietly gives way to participation in wholeness. This is a living expression of thought, not escape from the human experience, its complete embrace. For the bridge between the human and the divine was never built, it was always present, waiting to be crossed through remembrance. Reflection. Take a quiet moment to sit in stillness. Ask yourself, which expression of separation has shaped my life more deeply? Repression or possession? Which practices speak most directly to where I am today? What parts of myself am I still unwilling to embrace? Where do I continue seeking outside myself what already exists within? What would change if I truly believed I was never separate from love? What would remain if the illusion of separation quietly dissolved? How can I embody that remembrance today? The abyss is not crossed by acquiring more knowledge. It is crossed through surrender. Not the surrender of yourself, but the surrender of everything you are not. Every illusion released reveals the wholeness that has always been present. Every act of remembrance becomes another step across the bridge.